Temples are buildings or structures used for religious or spiritual activities. They are usually used as shrines for deities and contain inner rooms or spaces intended for worship, both by the ordained and lay people. In Buddhism, the word temple can refer to a variety of structures, including stupas, pagodas, and wats. A stupa is the earliest form of Buddhist religious monuments. It is generally a type of mound used to house relics of the Buddha. Stupas then evolved into pagodas, which are tiered towers with multiple eaves. Wats are buildings that act as temples and schools with resident monks. Temple complexes may consist of several buildings and include any or all of these specific structures. Each of the buildings serves a unique purpose to the function of the temple as a whole. While architectural style and structure vary with region, time period of construction, and the school of Buddhism it is associated with, Buddhist temples share some important common features. Often, Buddhist temples are not just one building, but several buildings or structures grouped together, which are separated based on the purpose each one serves. The most important area in any Buddhist temple is the sacred space. This is where images of the Buddha and Bodhisattvas are kept. Important rituals may also be performed in this area of the complex. This area is always separated from other areas of the temple that are accessible to lay worshippers. The method of separation can vary from simple wooden railings in the room to entire spans of gravel courtyards. Another space of importance in temples is one for the day-to-day needs of the clergy, which is especially crucial if the space is a monastery as well as a temple. Temples in general are also often used to house important relics and sacred objects. Buddhist tradition, especially in the Theravadan world, dictates that devotees must circumnambulate the sacred object, which involves keeping the object to one's right. It's a show of respect dating back to the Buddha's death. It's also a common element to many temples and monuments, since pathways designed to facilitate circumnambulation are often incorporated into the architecture. Although they all share the same basic purpose and some general characteristics, Buddhist temples can vary architecturally from caves cut from rock cliffs to modern buildings of wood and concrete. Some of the oldest examples of Buddhist architecture are cave temples. Cave temples are exactly what the name implies, natural rock formations that have been carved into religious monuments. A large majority of Buddhist cave temples are located in China and India, though the idea of building temples by hollowing out rock faces came from Central Asia. Most of these temples were started in North China as early as the 4th century BC, though many were later expanded. One of the largest and most famous cave temples is the Mogao Caves, also known as the Caves of the Thousand Buddhas, located near Dunhuang, China. The complex currently consists of a collection of 492 temples that are more rock-cut architecture than natural formations, and contain elaborately decorated frescoes and statues ranging in height from 1 inch to 109 feet. The temples were started in 366, when it's said that a monk had a vision of 1,000 Buddhas, thus the name of the temples. For the next 10 centuries, the temples grew, thanks to the monks collecting all sorts of scriptures and manuscripts, and to visiting pilgrims, adding to the painted murals on the cave walls on their way through. The goal of the caves was to be a help on the path to enlightenment. The murals served two purposes: as a guide for meditation, and as a way to help share and teach Buddhist stories and beliefs, especially to the illiterate. Other famous Chinese Buddhist cave temples are the Longmen Grottos and the Yungang Grottos. Construction of the Longmen Grottos began in 493 AD, and they contain 2,345 caves, 2,800 inscriptions, 43 pagodas, and over 100,000 Buddhist images. Yungang was built during 460 to 525 AD and consists of 252 grottos with over 51,000 Buddhist statues, making it home to some of the finest Chinese stone carvings from the 5th and 6th centuries. Together, these three temples, the Mogao Caves, the Longmen Grottos, and the Yungang Grottos, are the oldest and most famous architectural sculptures. Another famous example of rock-cut architecture serving as a Buddhist temple is the site of Ellora, located in the Indian state of Maharashtra. Constructed between the 5th and 10th centuries, the caves of Ellora contain 12 Buddhist, specifically Mahayana, 17 Hindu, and 5 Jain caves. Of these, the Buddhist caves are the oldest, dating back to the 5th and 7th centuries. Most of the Buddhist caves serve as large monasteries carved out of the mountain face. In addition to their function as monasteries, many of the caves are also shrines, housing statues of the Buddha, bodhisattvas, and various saints. The ceilings are carved, and many of them are covered in painted geometric designs, while the surrounding walls display sculptures and murals that narrate the life of the Buddha. A unique feature of these caves is that the stone carvings in them were made to resemble wood. In one of the caves, known as the Vishvakarma cave, or the Carpenter's cave, the ceiling is carved so that there appears to be wooden beams across it. Often associated with the Ellora caves are the Ajanta caves, also located in Maharashtra, India. These 29 caves, located in a wooded U-shaped ravine, focus mostly on the Buddhist religion, and are broadly divided into two time periods, those from the 3rd to 2nd centuries BC, and those from the 5th to 6th centuries AD. As with most temples, these caves are covered in paintings and friezes narrating stories from the Buddha's life, ranging from his birth to his enlightenment, and a variety in between. The oldest caves are somewhat mistakenly classified as Hinayana, since they don't contain any statues of the Buddha, which the Hinayana sect used to object to. The later caves are referred to as the Mahayana caves, since they were built during the time when Buddhism was shifting to the Mahayana doctrine. Similar to Ellora, the Ajanta caves also served primarily as monastic centers. The entire site includes many viharas, or monastic halls of residence, and chatyas grihas, or stupa monument halls and meeting places. The viharas come in many different sizes, with most of them being square-shaped. Their architecture ranges from simple to ornate, though the most important element in all of them is the hall. Some of the early viharas don't contain shrines, but they were later incorporated as a standard addition to the back wall of the hall. The main shrines display the Buddha in the Dharma Chakra Pravartana Mudra, representative of his first teachings and the turning of the wheel of Dharma. In addition to the shrines, many of the facades, walls, and ceilings of the viharas are covered with carvings and paintings. The meeting places, or chatyas, are also an important characteristic of the temple complex, with their rows of carved columns and vaulted ceilings. They are similar to any normal building, with the unique feature that the light only enters into the space through one side of the room. Buddhist temples also vary depending on the specific school or sect they are associated with. Theravada is the earliest school of Buddhism and is mostly found in Sri Lanka, continental Southeast Asia, that is, Cambodia, Laos, and Thailand, among others, Malaysia, and Indonesia. It has a strict focus on what the Buddha taught and has yielded many significant Buddhist temples over time. Temple architecture and characteristics can vary by country. For example, Thai temples are generally separated from the lay world by two enclosing walls. The monastic quarters are located between the inner and outer walls. Sometimes bell towers are also found in this area between the walls. On the inner walls of some of the larger temples are located images of the Buddha. These act as galleries for meditation. Another characteristic of Thai Buddhist temples is the presence of tall golden stupas. The architecture of Buddhist temples in Thailand is also very similar to those in other Southeast Asian countries like Cambodia and Laos. One of the most significant Theravada temples is Angkor Wat, located in Angkor, Cambodia. The entire complex consists of many temples spanning 40 miles, arranged to architecturally mirror the stars in the sky. The largest structure in the best condition at the site is Angkor Wat, which was originally built in the 12th century as a Hindu religious site, but was converted to Buddhism in the 14th or 15th century. Angkor Wat was designed to symbolize the home of the Hindu gods called Mount Meru. A moat surrounds 5 internested rectangular walls, each one raised above the next. The temple's architectural style is that of Khmer, that is, Cambodian architecture, and is often compared to the classical style of ancient Greece or Rome. Many of the structures were built with sandstone, except for the secular buildings, which have eroded with time. Characteristic elements of Khmer architecture that appear in Angkor Wat are ogivals, galleries, gilding, wooden accents, and bas-reliefs of devatas or apsaras. Ogivals are sawtooth-edged towers that resemble lotus buds. Galleries are passageways that run along a wall or axis of a temple, which can be used to broaden hallways or connect enclosures. Apsaras are celestial dancing girls, but the term can also be used to refer to heavenly nymphs, though the specific term for them is devatas. A unique feature of the Angkor Wat temple is that the structure faces west, rather than following the tradition of pointing east. Also, the bas-reliefs throughout the temple progress in a counterclockwise direction, which is again reversed from tradition. This could be taken to mean that the temple was intended to serve as a funerary temple, since rituals are performed in reverse order during Brahminic funerals. Another reason for the direction could be Vishnu's association with the West, since Angkor Wat was originally a Hindu temple for Vishnu. Mahayana is the second main branch of Buddhism, taking a more liberal approach to the teachings and discipline and giving greater importance to bodhisattvas. It originated in India and spread to China, Japan, Korea, and Vietnam. Temple designs and architecture can vary greatly by country, so each region's temples have their own distinct characteristics. Chinese Buddhist temples follow the style of Chinese imperial palaces, greatly distinguishing them from other Buddhist temples in the world. The complex usually consists of 3 groups of buildings, separated by courtyards. In compliance with other Chinese structures, the monastery usually faces south. The front hall generally contains 4 huge images made from wood, 2 on either side. These are the 4 heavenly kings, or devas, the guardians of the 4 directions. The hall is named after them as the Si Tian Wang Tian. Separated from the front hall by a wall or courtyard is the Great Hall. In the Great Hall is the main altar, which holds the image of the Sakyamuni Buddha and 2 of his disciples, Mahakasyapa and Ananda. To the left and right of the main altar are the 2 bodhisattvas, Manjusri and Samantabhadra. On the east and west walls are figures of the 18 arhats, who are represented as possessing various kinds of superpowers. Behind this hall is the back hall, which is usually divided into several smaller rooms with more altars, funerary tablets, teachings, and meditation spaces, and living quarters. Similarly, Japanese Buddhist temples resemble other traditional Japanese buildings, although they do share some design basis with Chinese palaces and Korean temples. Tall, thick wooden columns serve as load-bearing and stabilizing elements. Each column sits atop a large anchoring rock. Around these columns are built the walls, floors, and complex bracketed roof structures. The roof styles are very diverse, though they're generally tiled and sloping. Older temples have roofs with upturned, flaring corners. Newer temples have smoother, flatter roof corners. The complexes themselves contain 3 essential buildings: a pagoda, typically 3 to 5 stories tall, a great hall, called a kondo, and a monastic study hall called a kodo. Generally, there's a gate, tower, kondo, and kodo in a straight line from north to south. Corridors extend east and west from the flanks of the gate, then turn north, and finally join north of the kodo, forming a cloister around the pagoda and major halls. Sacred spaces encircle a courtyard and are entered via a set of gates, which typically have a pair of large guardian statues called nyo. The common feature in most Korean temples is that their largest and most prominent building is also the most important one, which houses statues of the Buddha and other religious figures. South Korea is also home to the 3 jewel temples, which are the 3 principal Buddhist temples in the country. They represent the 3 jewels of Buddhism: the Dharma, the Sangha, and the Buddha himself. Ahimsa, which symbolizes the Dharma or the Buddha's teaching, houses the Tripitaka Koreana, the Buddhist scriptures. The distinguishing features of the Sangwonsa, the temple representing the Sangha or the Buddhist community, are the large buildings devoted to its monastic community. The main hall of Tongdosa, representative of the Buddha, contains a stupa which is said to house relics of the Buddha himself. One of the most famous Buddhist Mahayana monuments is Borobudur in central Java, Indonesia. It was built by subjects of the Sailendra dynasty in the 7th or 8th centuries during a golden age of temple construction in Southeast Asia, and is considered to be one of the oldest and greatest examples of Buddhist architecture. Borobudur might be classified as more of a stupa than a temple, since it first appears to be just a giant shrine to the Buddha. However, the design's complexity and numerous spaces for worship distinguish it as a temple. The structure, made of lava rock and built on a natural bedrock hill, is shaped like a tiered pyramid. It is comprised of 6 rectangular platforms, 3 circular terraces, and a central stupa which serves as the peak. From above, the temple looks like a Buddhist mandala, which represents Buddhist cosmology and the nature of the mind. The temple is divided into 3 main levels, which mirrors the 3 levels of Buddhist cosmology. The lowest level, which represents the world of desire, contains 160 reliefs that display images of cause and effect. The middle level, which represents the world of form, includes a circumnavigation path decorated with narrative reliefs from the Jataka tales and the stories of all the Buddha's lives. The top level, representing the world of the formless, isn't decorated at all, but instead has a square-shaped balcony with round walls, where 92 Dhyani Buddha statues are housed in concentric rows of small, bell-shaped stupas. This ascent through the levels of the building is a symbolic journey through the world of appearances and into the boundlessness of awakening. The uppermost part is accessed by stairways at the center of each side of the structure and gates guarded by 32 lion statues. There is also another secret space hidden in the base of the temple, which houses additional reliefs, some of which are instructions on the temple's construction. Overall, the temple and its bas reliefs symbolize the quest for awakening through the 10 stages of the Bodhisattva's path. One branch of Mahayana Buddhism is Zen Buddhism, which focuses on meditation and moment-by-moment awareness. Zen structures have their own distinct style, including Zen temples and gardens. One such example is the Temple of Ryoanji in Kyoto, Japan. The temple and its famous garden were constructed sometime late in the 1400s. Like most temple complexes, it consists of many separate buildings like the kuri, the monks' quarters, the hojo, the abbot's quarters, which house the altar room and the image of the Buddha, and the zorokuan, or the tea room. The main focus of the complex is the famous rock garden, considered one of the masterpieces of Japanese culture. The rock garden measures only 30 meters by 10 meters and is composed simply of raked sand and 15 large, irregularly shaped rocks. The rocks sit atop small white pebbles and are arranged in 5 different groups, comprised of 5, 2, 3, 2, and 3 rocks. The boulders are laid out such that it is only possible to view 14 of them at once, no matter which direction they are viewed from. It is said that the 15th boulder is only seen by those who have achieved enlightenment. The pattern of the rocks and the empty space it creates also lines up with the temple's architecture. For example, the axis of symmetry of the rock design almost runs exactly along the center line of the main hall. This visual simplicity and symmetry exhibited by Ryoanji is characteristic of many Zen temples. The basic purpose of any temple, Buddhist or otherwise, is to serve as a house of a deity or other religious figure, and is used as a place where followers of all types can come to worship at. Buddhist temples are usually entire complexes, sometimes spanning many miles, with separate buildings that have their own distinct purpose and design. The architecture and style of the temple is dependent on many factors, including the region or country the temple is located in, the time period it was constructed during, and to which branch of Buddhism it is devoted.